Right off the bat, we need to address the biggest problem with Executioner 2. This is a sequel to a movie that doesn't exist. That's right, there is no Executioner Part 1. Okay, get out your notebooks because this one's going to take a bit of explaining. In 1980, there was a film called The Exterminator, where a Vietnam veteran goes on a vengeance-fueled killing spree with a flamethrower. This movie featured that paper chase guy. In 1984, there was going to be a sequel, Exterminator Part 2. To capitalize on the upcoming film, director James Bryan filmed Executioner Part 2. He specifically used the title Executioner Part 2 in the hopes that audiences will be confused, thinking that this film was a sequel to Exterminator and not realizing Executioner Part 2 was unrelated. Exploitation cinema, folks, right there. Now we have to talk about Paul L. Smith. This man had one interesting career. He got his start in Exodus for director Otto Preminger. Exodus allowed him to rub elbows with the likes of Paul Newman, Lee J. Cobb, and Sal Mineo. Because he had a striking resemblance to Italian actor Bud Spencer, he actually worked on a few films in Italy with Antonio Cantafora, billed as Michael Kobe. Here, the filmmakers were actually playing off of the popularity of the Spencer and Hill films by having a duo that shared a striking resemblance. Smith and Cantafora worked together for about 5 or 6 films. I'm sure this played a part in him getting the role in Return of the Tiger. I'll explain that in a bit. Smith's other credits include plenty of TV appearances. He was Bluto in Popeye with Robin Williams. He was the groundskeeper Willard in the cult horror film Pieces. He was a highlight in the Sam Raimi-Coen Brothers collaboration Crime Wave. He was also in Dune for David Lynch. I have a feeling Paul Smith was cast in Return of the Dragon because Jimmy Shaw and the producers wanted Bud Spencer, but it could have been a case of language barrier, or Spencer may have been too expensive or out of shape for the action sequences. Smith was brought in because he was more agile. He has a black belt in Taekwondo, which gives him credibility in the martial arts genre. Now let's discuss the controversy. The Goblin scores for Dawn of the Dead, Booyah Omega, and Alien Contamination were appropriated by director Bruno Mattei for his zombie film, Hell of the Living Dead. This is in addition to Mattei taking music from the Louis Bacalov score for Blood and Diamonds, a crime thriller starring Martin Balsam. Mattei was able to access the scores for his film thanks to his relationship with Cinevox producer Carlo Bixio. Through this avenue, Mattei didn't need the permission of the band to use their music. Goblin hated the fact that Mattei used their music not only for Hell of the Living Dead, but for the subsequent film by Mattei, The Other Hell. That said, adding Goblin's music to these films makes them all the more watchable. Mattei's films were ridiculously entertaining to begin with, but Goblin's music adds a lot to the spirit and tone of the film. Mattei's use of Goblin really isn't that far removed from Tarantino using the music of Ennio Morricone or Louis Bacalov in his films. Both Tarantino and Mattei knew the kind of music they wanted for their films, and they knew that nothing else could satisfy them for their respective projects. In 2000, Dario Argento was working on his first giallo film in decades with Non Ho Sono, aka Sleepless. The news that the classic Goblin lineup of Simonetti, Marangolo, Morante, and Pignatelli would reunite for the score was met with much excitement. The score was a mix of rock and some of the prog elements akin to Suspiria. For Simonetti, this was a less than enjoyable time. In his words, "Sincerely, I can tell you that the reunion of Sleepless was a bad nightmare for me. It seemed to me that we have returned back to 25 years. Same problems, same disagreements, like teenagers. I don't want any more bad experiences like that."